The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, July 8th. I am back. Thank you all for being patient while I was at the Objectives conferences for a week, and yeah, it was just too difficult to do it while I was there. So I apologize. But here we are. So we're back at least for the next couple of weeks. We will have a show pretty much every day. Then I'm off to Arizona for the Peterson thing, and then Europe. But Europe, I've rented an office. We should be good for daily shows from Lisbon and from Florence. All right, let's jump right in. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. The pedophile, the organizer of a sex ring, the hobnobber of the who's who, basically of the planet. I did a couple of shows on Jeffrey Epstein way back when the story broke, and I expressed how just what a scumbag I thought he was, and how horrific this all was. And then, of course, he committed suicide in jail, or at least that's the official story. And there's been a lot of talk about where's the list of all these people who were on Epstein's island and participated in his sex-fueled parties and orgies and stuff with underaged women or girls. And it's never materialized. We've never actually gotten any list, and indeed, other than his one accomplice, nobody has been brought to trial on this issue. Giselle Maxwell is the only person, and she basically refused really to name names and stayed quiet. She got a long jail sentence. She got 20 years. No other names have been mentioned. We've seen basically nothing more come of this. And of course, this has been fodder for MAGA. MAGA has made this into a massive conspiracy theory. The Clintons were involved, they say. Senior people within the Democratic Party were involved, and as a consequence of all this involvement, they have prevented the truth from coming out there. The names will never be named because the Democratic Party doesn't want them to be named. And of course, there were rumors about Jeffrey Epstein didn't actually kill himself. He was murdered. He was murdered in order to preserve those names. And there was also stories, if you remember, about he videotaped all of it. And I was indeed surprised because clearly he videotaped. I mean, there was facilities for videotaping in his various homes on the famous island. It was very difficult to get to. And for some reason, the police, FBI, took a long time to get there once he was arrested. And supposedly there were videotapes of all the sex that was going on there. And again, supposedly those videotapes were being used to bribe people. Now, I have no clue what if that is true and what if that is not. It is almost impossible to say. One thing is clearly true is that Epstein had very, very powerful friends. And he, again, hobnobbed in very elite circles with with politicians, with some of the most successful businessmen in America, and with many others, and again, 15, 16, 17-year-old girls. But no names, nothing. And Trump promised, as in his campaign and feeding the MAGA frenzy around conspiracy theories, that this was going to, completely bring the downfall of the Democratic Party, and this was going to catch everybody, and all these businessmen were going to be brought down, which MAGA loves that idea. Donald Trump promised that a list would indeed be provided, that he would get the Justice Department to make public all of its files, and that all of the evidence would be brought forward. And indeed, he put in place people, Kash Patel at the FBI and Bondi at the Justice Department, who, had talked about there being a conspiracy, and that these things weren't being released because protecting the Democrats, and they swore as part of their new jobs to release all this and to make a big deal out of this. And this was going to be a big part of the big reveal. This is going to be part of cleaning the swamp that Trump promised. And why do I say that that Jeffrey Epstein had a lot of power? I mean, you go back to his original indictment in Florida, and the kind of light sentence he got, and the fact that he got off so easily and with no real consequences, and just went back to doing the same thing he was doing before. Congressman Acosta from Florida, who was at the time the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, who agreed to the plea deal, actually said that he agreed to a very lenient plea deal because he was told, I guess by people above him, that Epstein belonged to intelligence, was above his pay grade, and that basically he was supposed to leave him alone. So Epstein, agreed to plead guilty to 2 felony prostitution charges, served 18 months in prison, registered as a sex offender, and paid retribution to 36 victims identified by the FBI. And basically, that was it. Everybody basically described this as a sweetheart deal, all explained by the fact that Epstein was important in some way. And, this belonging to intelligence has led many people, again, with conspiracy theory, MAGA, a lot of people, certainly everybody who hates Israel, to claim that he was a Mossad agent, and this was all a Mossad operation. This was a Mossad operation to bribe American politicians to support Israel. They were caught, on videotape. All those videotapes were given to the Mossad and all of that. Zero evidence, zero proof of any of that, but that is one of the main conspiracy theories out there. And of course, again, Donald Trump was supposed to clear all this up and clean all this up. Anyway, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, had said, people had asked her, well, when is the Epstein files going to be released? When is this all going to come out? And she said, look, it's on my desk. I'm going to get to it. We'll get it soon. And then yesterday, or the day before, whenever it was, she basically said, she basically came on and said, look, there's basically no Epstein client list. It just doesn't exist. And by the way, he committed suicide, so all those conspiracy theories are wrong. And there's just no story here. There's no there. He's everything that the mainstream media told you about Jeffrey Epstein is true, and there's nothing deeper, and there's no conspiracy, and there's nothing particularly interesting here. Forget it. This is after, if you might remember, that when Elon Musk first broke with Donald Trump, Elon Musk, one of his first tweets was, Donald Trump is on the Jeffrey Epstein list. Client list, right? So, MAGA is going nuts, right? There's a portion of MAGA, of course, that is completely brainwashed to agree with everything Donald Trump says, and they're just going, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein, there was never an issue there. Nothing. We never thought there was. This is all, yeah, I'm sure, yeah, Donald Trump, always right. This is fine. And then there's another portion of MAGA just going crazy because now the cover-up is not just the Democratic Party. They are arguing the cover-up is the Republican Party, and now they're more convinced than ever that maybe Trump is on those lists, and now they're freaking out and they don't know what to do. And anyway, it's kind of fun to watch MAGA implode on itself. Right? Now, we do know, because a lot of this is being released, that a lot of people traveled on, his private jet to the island. The private jet was called the Lolita Express. A lot of people: Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, and we also know that he partied quite a bit with Donald Trump, and that quite a few people have traveled on that plane. We know, again, that prosecutor Alex Acosta, who later became Trump's labor secretary, and we know he gave him a good deal, right? There's all the conspiracies about his death. Giselle never said anything. And, there is no Epstein client list. We're told there never was. The story's exaggerated. It's really a myth. It's all an intended conspiracy. None of this happened. Anyway, we'll probably never know what exactly happened. If a lot of important people were involved, those files are probably in ashes right now. Who knows what exactly happened? We know that Epstein and Maxwell trafficked underage girls. There was a property in Arizona. There was the property in New York, and there was the island. We'll know they committed really horrific crimes. He's dead. She's in prison for 20 years. There's a bunch of co-conspirators as part of the trafficking. We know that. But this story, this is it. It's died. It's finished. The conspiracy theories will continue, but MAGA has an incentive to bury it. So even the people right now flipping out MAGA and saying we were conned, we were lied to, all of this, that'll die down, because ultimately their loyalty to Donald Trump, and ultimately their loyalty is not to reality, not to truth. So the reality is we will literally never know. And I, as I said at the beginning, I don't know. I don't know what actually happened. I don't know how much of this makes sense. I believe Epstein committed suicide, but in terms of the clients and the influence and the keeping this quiet, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually happening. That's about as close as you will get in the Yaron Brook Show for me acknowledging a conspiracy theory. But I think people want this quiet, and they're keeping it quiet. There's a lot of very wealthy and a lot of very powerful people who do not want it known what actually happened on that island and who was involved. And I think there's a good chance we will actually never know. We'll actually never know. All right, over the weekend, we had these unbelievably tragic floods in Texas. I mean, I don't have a lot to say about the story, but just that, there were massive flash floods in central Texas, in the area between Austin. You can think of it between Austin and San Antonio, maybe a little bit west of that. I've seen videos of how quickly the water rose. It truly is stunning. It was like a wall of water just coming down. These little creeks suddenly turned into massive rivers. The consequence of this is dozens, well over 100 people are probably dead. There's still some people missing. Quite a few of the dead and the missing are young campers who were camping along these creeks and along these rivers. Some of them belonging to a Christian organization that organized camps there. It is worrisome and concerning that Texas, which is known for flash floods, did not have a better system of anticipating, predicting, and warning people about the floods. There was some system in place that turned out to be incredibly ineffective and inefficient, calling people up on their cell phones rather than some warning system. It's not clear that the warnings were given with enough time to evacuate low-lying areas. And maybe it really wasn't possible. Maybe this is truly one of those freak, crazy events that where it's just not possible to give people the kind of warning, a real warning before the flood happens. But a real tragedy, a natural disaster. Again, a lot of people have died. A lot of them kids, and that's particularly sad and agonizing, in particular for the parents and for their families. So I think we'll learn more about what exactly happened. If there was a failure here of the state governments or the local authorities in the different counties, I think we'll find out more as the days progress. But anyway, a real tragedy in that part of the world, a beautiful, really pretty part of the world that I think a lot of objectivists live adjacent to, not quite where the flooding actually occurred, I think, but adjacent to. So hopefully all of you, my listeners who live around those parts, are all safe and haven't had too much damage as a consequence of these rains. Rain in Texas, when it comes, can be intense, and flooding is not unknown, and these thunder and lightning storms are really intense, and a lot of damage can be caused. Texas we think of as a kind of some people think of it as maybe desert, but the Austin area is very green. There's quite a bit of water. There are lakes and rivers and creeks and water flowing everywhere. And when it does rain a lot, like it can in the summer, where you can get these unbelievable rainstorms, storms do happen. All right. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I mean, yesterday we talked to Scott Lincecum. If you haven't listened to that the interview, highly encourage you to listen to it. Scott is really knowledgeable and I think quite objective about these issues of tariffs, issues of trade. I think he brings a certain sanity to it. On the one hand, he completely recognizes that what Donald Trump is doing with tariffs is completely unjustified, is completely insane, serves no positive economic purpose, is economically damaging, is economically destructive, and really, there's just no reason for it. There's no justification, and that it really is just an arbitrary whim on the part of Donald Trump. He likes tariffs. He likes tariffs for a variety of reasons, including it makes it feel powerful. He can write these nasty letters to foreign governments. He can arbitrarily benefit or destroy different industries. He can grant favors. He can have people come grovel to him. But also, he genuinely, to the extent there is such a thing as genuinely, when you refer to Donald Trump, he genuinely doesn't get trade. He is ignorant of trade. I think he's ignorant of trade on one-to-one basis inside the United States. And I think he's ignorant of trade on an international scale. That is, he views trade as a negative-sum game. He views trade as winners. They're winners and losers. It's not a win-win. And he is antagonistic to trade. And he views, as mercantilists have viewed forever, that the measure of your wealth is not in the stuff that you have, but in the amount of dollars that you have. In the old days of mercantilism, was the amount of gold that you have. I'm actually doing a course for Peterson Academy on trade, mercantilism, tariffs, globalization, and what that means. The whole spectrum of these issues. And I'm doing a lot of research for that, so I'm reading a lot of books on that. So it's really interesting, and I'll have more to say about it once I finish the research and actually deliver the course. But it's going to be a good course, and it'll be interesting, and it's going to cover all this, and it's going to cover a lot of the history. Anyway, in the days of the gold standard, if you exported, right? If you exported stuff, you sent goods overseas, and gold came in, and the view was that was good. and that the other way, where you imported stuff and stuff came in and gold went out, that was bad. And the prosperity in the economy, according to Merkel list, was measured by how much gold you had in the economy, which is bad economics and wrong. I mean, the well-being from a macroeconomic perspective needs to be the well-being of the population, standard of living, quality of life of the people who are productive in your society. So there's definitely this confusion. I don't think it's confusion. I think it's an evasion, particularly on the part of Donald Trump, about the benefits of trade. He dislikes trade. He dislikes imports. He likes exporting. He dislikes importing. And he doesn't get that the money all flows back. He doesn't get that that's where the demand for treasury bonds is, and that is a consequence of relatively low interest rates in the United States. And that if you shrink the trade deficit, you shrink the demand for government bonds, you cause interest rates in the United States to rise, and economically, none of that is necessarily good. Now, that's just one aspect of all of this. But he doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. And he doesn't care about quality of life, standard of living. He cares about this metric of trade deficit. How much are we exporting versus how much are we importing? And certainly a trade deficit with any particular country is meaningless. You could argue that a persistent trade deficit with the whole world, a consistent aggregate trade deficit, is a sign of something not working right. And in this case, it's a consequence of the fact that we run a budget deficit, a government deficit that requires us to constantly be issuing bonds, constantly borrowing money, and that creates a supply of bonds that is then picked up by foreigners who need dollars in order to buy them, and therefore, export a huge amount to us. So there's a whole cycle. But if there's a problem in our economy, if there's a challenge in our economy, if there's something that is bad in our economy, that maybe one of its symptoms is a persistent long-term trade deficit, that something that is a problem is the persistent long-term budget deficit of the U.S. government. And note that Donald Trump has done everything he can, everything in his power, to grow that budget deficit, grow the amount of debt the United States owes, the United States has to raise. He did that in his first term, with debt going way up during his first term, and including during COVID, where he initiated the first big, humongous stimulus. And the current big, beautiful bill that has just raised the debt ceiling by $5 trillion and means that we're going to be $5 trillion more in debt over the next decade, probably much more in debt over the next decade, but over the next period of time than we would have otherwise been. So if you really care about standard of living, quality of life, the U.S. economy, success of the U.S. economy, your focus should be on cutting dramatically, as Milei has done. We'll talk about Milei at the end of the show, U.S. government spending. That's what the focus should be. Right. All right. Let's see. So anyway, so Donald Trump. So I thought I'd comment on what's going on with tariffs in addition to yesterday's show, but I encourage you all to watch yesterday's show. The other thing that makes Scott really good is he recognizes the evil of what Trump is doing, the badness of it. But he also puts it in perspective. That is, it in and of itself is not going to cause a Great Depression. It's not going to spiral the U.S. economy into such a depression. It might contribute, among other things, to a recession, but it is not hugely destructive. It's destructive. It's destructive to the lives of individuals, particularly all of us as consumers, but even more so to the lives of small business people all over the United States. They are the ones who suffer the most. They are the ones who are going to get penalized the most. They're the ones who are going to, who are, many of them, on the brink of bankruptcy. And that is the real evil of all of this. Again, it's probably not high inflation and a great recession. Prices of particular goods will go up. There will be, and already are in some areas, shortages. But this is not driving us towards a depression. And, Trump cut the tariffs on China just enough to minimize the shortages. And he did it just in time as shortages was trying to appear. I mean, one of the things Scott mentioned, and one of the things that I think is absolutely true, is that American businessmen are very shrewd in getting around this. So, for example, in the weeks before the tariffs went into effect, American business built up massive inventories of stuff from China so that they could hold on when those ships stopped arriving in American ports. They could hold on because they had the inventory. And Trump lowered the tariffs on 145% to only 50%, still stupid and destructive, but a lot less stupid and a lot less destructive. Well, maybe not less stupid, but less destructive. And therefore, we haven't felt massive shortages, although small businesses are experiencing those shortages and are experiencing 50% higher costs in some parts. And small businesses are struggling. And you hear every day about small businesses that have relied on bringing in products from overseas, going out of business or approaching bankruptcy. So, this is stupid and bad and destructive to the economy. It's just not something that's going to push us over the cliff. It's something that is going to just make our lives a little worse off. It's going to reduce the amount of prosperity that we have. It's going to reduce economic growth. Reduce the quality and standard of living of Americans. But slowly, I've talked about this for a long time now. Most of what government has done, the government has gotten good at hurting us, but never too much. That is, the government has gotten very good, and this is the Fed and the government has gotten to the point where what they do is everything they put in place, it's not going to kill us. It's not going to put us into Great Depression. They figured that one out. But what it does is it slowly erodes freedom. It slowly erodes, as a consequence, economic growth and economic prosperity. So we grow it 2% instead of 2.5%. Seems like a little, but that 0.5% compounded over many years is huge. And actually, if you take out all the regulations and all the controls and the central bank and everything else, we probably grow it 1 to 2% instead of 5-6%. And that 4% compounded is massive in terms of how rich we could be and are not. So what is really lost is how rich we could be. We're still not at the point, and we always seem to self-correct before we get to that point. We're still not at the point where government policies are ones that are just driving us into a depression. By the way, like 1% difference in economic growth over 100 years is the difference between the United States and Central American countries in terms of prosperity, in terms of wealth. I think it's the difference between U.S. and Mexico over the last 100 years. It's, I think, a little less than 1% difference in growth rate. That's it, a year, annualized. But when you compound it, it's huge. So what Trump is doing, like most politicians, is eroding our future growth, eroding our future wealth, eroding our future prosperity, just making us poorer in ways, in a sense, we will never know. We'll never know. And what I think the stock market has figured out after April is because he backtracked from those massive reciprocal tariffs that he put in place in April. What the markets have figured out is this is bad, but it's not bad enough to drive us into a depression. And that's why the market has recovered and the market is doing okay. It's not doing great, but it's doing okay. Also, remember, the main victims of tariffs are not big business, they're small business. And big business always manages, to go to Trump and Congress and get carve-outs like Apple did, and just to rejuggle. So, let's see, the tariffs from one country, from China, might be 50% right now, but the tariffs from Vietnam are now, 30%. Each country has their own tariffs now. So big business is very good at shifting operations, so the things that they buy from China look like they're coming from Vietnam, and they pay a lower tariff rate. And you're seeing a lot of that rejuggling of the supply chains, so that the impact of tariffs is lessened. All of that just costs more. It's disruptive. It reduces efficiency. It's a waste of capital. It's a waste of resources. But this is the kind of stupidity that Donald Trump requires. This is the kind of stupidity that Donald Trump's policies make necessary. Right? Anyway, Donald Trump sent, I think, 6 letters over the weekend to various countries announcing what their tariff will be. You can go and read the letters. It's worth reading just so you can see how illiterate the people who work for Donald Trump are. And letters that he signs, how pathetic they are in terms of grammar, capitalization. They're just, really, this is going out on White House letterhead to heads of state all over the world. And whoever wrote the letters can't even, can't do grammar, can't write well, can't punctuate right. It's pathetic? Pathetic is too kind of a word. Anyway, for example, South Korea, with whom Trump negotiated a trade deal in 2018 that basically eliminated tariffs between South Korea and the United States. In 2018, we had a free trade agreement whereby tariffs basically went down to zero. This is the free trade that everybody claimed falsely that Trump actually wanted. This is what he did in 2018. This was good. Now, in spite of tariffs being zero, we have a big trade deficit with South Korea. We import more stuff from South Korea than South Korea imports from the United States. As a consequence, that is a huge no-no for Trump. So he sent them a letter, and now is imposing on them a 25% tariff on all South Korean goods coming into the United States. No negotiations, no incentive to negotiate, nothing. Now, Korea doesn't have any tariffs in the U.S. They could choose, it's in their rational self-interest to choose, not to raise tariffs in the U.S. and just, let American consumers absorb the 25% increase in cost, and this will hurt South Korean industry because demand for their goods will decline in the United States. But what can they do? The United States is raising taxes on their goods. They could retaliate, which would be bad for the Koreans and bad for Americans. In that case, will Trump retaliate against their retaliation? Probably. And he is threatening them that they shouldn't retaliate. And again, no incentive to get the United States to lower the tariff below 25%, because the reality is that American exporters are exporting to to South Korea, pretty much anything they want at pretty much zero tariff. So why bother? There's nothing to negotiate. There's no benefit the South Koreans can give the United States. They will, I guess, buy more American stuff, but they don't want more American stuff. They don't need more American stuff. They have chosen not to buy more American stuff. So same kind of letter went to Japan. Japan's effective tax rate, I think, with the United States tariff rate is something like 3%. It's really, really low. They don't tariff our stuff. And yet they just got hit with 25% tariffs as well. Several other countries, Vietnam, got very high, I think 30% tariffs. Again, Vietnam, very, very low tariffs with the United States, in a sense of American goods coming into Vietnam are not tariffed at a high rate. I guess hopefully that stays in place. That would be good for the, Vietnamese and the United States. If they don't retaliate, it doesn't make sense to retaliate. The rational thing is not to retaliate, but sometimes politics necessitates retaliation. So it's it just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, South Korea now is 25%. Japan has gone up from 24 to 25%. In the original April 2nd was supposed to be 24, now it's 25%. Malaysia was originally in April 24%, now it's 25%. Kazakhstan. It was 27%, it's gone down to 25%. I guess they just had a letter with 25% on it. It was simpler. South Africa, 30%, both in April and now. Laos, big export imports with Laos, right? Was 48%, now 40%. This is the April 2nd reciprocal tariffs. And Myanmar went from 44% to 40%. So basically very close to what was the reciprocal tariffs of April 2nd. This will all go into effect now August 1st, as will all the other reciprocal tariffs, Trump tells us. He promised today he is not going to extend that. That's what's going to be in place. It's just the whole thing. It just, as we've said, it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't. There's no economic rationale. There's really no political rationale. There's no national security rationale. Myanmar is not a threat to the United States. There's no any rationale. Indeed, there's a national security damage that's done here, real damage, right? One of the objectives of this administration, supposedly, is to, isolate or at least prevent China from becoming a dominant global player. I mean, this administration has said, and its foreign policy people have said, to the extent they have a strategy, it's to prevent China from becoming a superpower equivalent to the United States that is matching the United States, that is challenging the United States. So what does this administration do in order to achieve that? It goes after our potential allies in Asia, and our allies, South Korea and Japan, are allies, and penalizes them with ridiculous tariffs. That is, it takes Japan and South Korea, who are on our side in a confrontation with China, or should be anyway, and were up until yesterday. And now it tells Japan and South Korea, we don't really like you, we don't really care for you, we don't want to see you succeed. We think you're bad guys because you don't import enough from the U.S., and we're going to penalize you with these tariffs, hurt your industries, hurt your companies by placing these tariffs on you. And, I mean, the tariffs are not paid by those companies and by Japan, but it reduces demand for their products. So they're hurt by the fact that they're going to sell less into the United States. And of course, it hurts American consumers, though those people actually pay the tariffs as a tax increase on Americans. So it's taken all these countries, Malaysia, Laos, Myanmar, all of these countries should be American allies, even Kazakhstan, in confronting China and Russia. And now we're treating them like they're bad guys. It just makes no sense, right? No sense. We've had these trade deals with these countries. He's thrown them out the window, and instead he is penalizing them. And we're kind of America is doing everything in its power right now, it seems, basically to isolate itself from any allies, even in confronting what MAGA thinks is the number one enemy of the United States, which is China. we seem to be isolating ourselves and hurting our alliances and hurting the countries that are supposed to be our friend in this. I mean, one of the things the Pentagon has done is it's got a review of the UK, Australian, US defense deal, which involved selling submarines and a bunch of other stuff. And the US is now rethinking that. Again, why would you rethink that? You've got Australia as a key ally in the Pacific with regard to containing the Chinese. Why would you alienate our allies? Now, I saw this. This is an interesting graph. There's a graph here of the price effects, the commodity price effects from the tariffs that are being raised through July 7th. This doesn't include the new tariffs that are coming down the pike. What prices have gone up? And it does an analysis here about short run and long term. In the short run, metals have gone up 37.6%. Leather products, 37%. Apparel, wearing apparel, clothes, 34.8%. Crops, 29%. Electrical equipment, 26%. Computer, electronics, and optical, 18%. Textiles, 17.8%. And you can and on and on. Long term, the numbers are a little lower because all this adjusts, but basically the same. You get a lot of rises in textiles, in clothing, in leather. Why are these the industries we want to reshore? Are these the industries we want to make American again? Do we want to start making leather products in the United States? Do we want to make clothes in the U.S.? I mean, this is just, even if you buy into some aspect of the reshoring, this makes absolutely no sense. And then, of course, yeah, one way to increase manufacturing is to raise the cost of metals for American industry. That'll encourage them to produce more in America. I mean, this is about as dumb an economic policy, the whole tariff thing, as anybody has ever done. Democratic, Republican, doesn't matter. And usually, by the way, if you look at history, tariffs are a Republican thing. Tariffs, for a variety of reasons, tariffs are a Republican thing. I'll get into that in my course on globalization. Tariffs in the 19th century were all Republicans. And remember the tariffs in that predated the Great Depression were Hoover, right? So again, a Republican phenomenon. Anyway, today Trump has not had enough. I mean, he is just, tariffs is the thing he loves. So he can't let a day go by, pretty much, without doing something, without initiating some stupid new tariffs. So now Trump says he's going to set tariffs on copper to 50%. 50%. So we don't have, metals are not high enough, are not expensive enough. Aluminum and steel, that's not enough. Now we need to go after copper as well, right? And then he did also say that he is giving it about a year before he's going to increase tariffs on pharmaceuticals that are not produced in the United States, and where he's going to impose a 200% tariff. And the idea here is he threatens the pharmaceutical companies so they build manufacturing plants in the United States to produce it all here. So 50% on copper, potentially 200% on pharmaceuticals. Again, this is about as dumb and stupid as it gets. This really reflects a complete ignorance of economics. Complete ignorance of economics. I mean, Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, might have some kind of plans for how tariffs can lower interest rates or whatever. All of that, so far at least, is blowing up in his face. It doesn't make any sense. Again, there's no economic foundation for it at all. And Bessent is not determining tariff policy. Trump is. And Trump is just, all over the place, inconsistent. All right, talk about stupid. Let's talk about the TSA. Now, a lot of our problems, I think, that we're experiencing right now, and this brings to mind ICE, for example, a consequence of the reorganization in the government in post 9/11, where the Department of Homeland Security was created, establishing, I think, at the time, the largest department within the government. I think, maybe with the exception of the Defense Department, just a massive department. It also got huge amounts of resources. I think all of those resources added up to the militarization of many of the policing functions of the Department of Homeland Security, including ICE. I mean, the reason ICE is so well equipped and so militarized is the Department of Homeland Security and the kind of funding they got post 9/11. And by the way, now in this latest budget, they have dramatically, massively increased the amounts of funding they received. I think it's well over $150 billion increase. God, if you want to set up a mechanism for internal security, like any good authoritarian regime has internal security, then increasing the budget for the Department of Homeland Security by these kind of numbers is the way to do that. The Department of Homeland Security is the department that will be responsible for suppressing internal opposition to what the great leader wants to do, when the time comes for a great leader. Anyway, the TSA, throughout its history, has basically been reactive. The TSA in its current formulation is a creation of the post 9/11 world. And it is being reactive. And one of the things that happened, one of the most successful terrorist acts in history, was the guy who put some explosives in his shoes and tried to set it off on an airplane, I think over the Atlantic, and failed and was I think wrestled down by other passengers and ultimately was jailed for life. And while he failed to kill anybody that day, what he managed to do is, for now, I guess 2 decades, force all of us to take off our shoes at the airport and have them screened. Now, think about this. The TSA is incapable of finding actual guns and weapons and explosives when people actually test them, when they actually, run these things to see if there are weaknesses in TSA. TSA always fails. But it's true that there'll be no more terrorists with explosives in their shoes. So we have now had over 20 years of the humiliation of having to take your shoes off, walk through, these detectors, some more intrusive than others, to make sure that we're not going to blow stuff up. Right? And think of how successful of a terrorist act that was. How much inconvenience that has caused. The I don't know, billions of hours we have spent taking off our shoes, putting our shoes back on. Just the absurdity of the whole process. Millions, billions and billions of people have had this happen to them. And for what? Anyway, the TSA has just announced that you will no longer have to remove your shoes to get through the regular line at TSA security checkpoint. Now, I have to say, I've had TSA pre forever, so I haven't taken off my shoes in a long time. Although, a few months ago, my shoes started beeping when I go through security in San Juan. Only San Juan, no other airport. And I've had to take off my shoes in San Juan airport, even though I'm TSA pre. But TSA pre, you've been able to keep your shoes on, so at least that indignity hasn't happened. But the whole TSA is one big attack on the dignity of Americans. You want to solve the terrorism problem? Go find them, destroy them, kill them. Don't torture Americans. The solution to terrorism is not to torture Americans. But this is what they love doing, government. I mean, torture us by taking off our shoes, torture us by raising the cost of things for no reason, increase our taxes in a hidden way without admitting you're raising taxes. I mean, torturing Americans is what American government is actually pretty good at. It's the one thing they're good at. Not good at anything else, but that's the one thing they are good at. Anyway, those of you who don't have TSA pre can now celebrate the fact that you do not have to take off your shoes. Okay, talk about crazy. This is a video that's circulating of a professor at the University of Chicago. She is, her name is Iman Abdelhadi, and she is here speaking at some conference to other academics. So the audience here is other academics. So I want you to watch this. And just this is if you're sending your kid to one of the best universities in the country, and one of the saner ones when it comes to a lot of the curriculum, the University of Chicago, this is whom they this is one of their teachers. This is one of their teachers. So you might want to think twice, or you want to ask your kids what classes they are taking. All right. Hopefully you guys can see this.
Fuck the University of Chicago. It's evil. Like,
this is her employer. I would say that should be a basis for firing somebody. When you think your employer is evil and willing to say that on camera, although she is covered with a mask, although I don't think the mask is to hide her identity. Her identity, there's a name tag there. I think it's to, I don't know, to do some kind of virtue signaling. I'm not sure what the mask is for. But this is her approach to employer. This is, I mean, the far left who are prevalent in our universities, you know, there's a real evil there, real evil, and you can see it in this woman.
Fuck the University of Chicago. It's evil. Like, you know, it's a colonial landlord. Like, why would...
It's a colonial landlord. The colonial landlord should fire her. Now, she probably has tenure, and they can't, but they should fire her. You shouldn't be able to talk like that about your employer.
Why would I put any of my political energy into this space? And I kind of had a little bit of disdain for like people who spent a lot of time doing that. And the genocide really collapsed that and made...
The genocide she's talking about, by the way, is not the attempted genocide on October 7th by Hamas. No. I mean, that was an act of self-defense, according to, and that was a heroic act, according to people like her. The genocide she's talking about is the so-called, the pretend, the lie that refers to Israel's actions in Gaza. That has woken her up.
Made me realize that.
Whoops.
Two things. One is that, well, my students needed me. So it was like, oh, I have to organize here to take care of my students who I do care about.
So she needs to organize to basically, you know, lie to her students about what is going on in the Middle East. That she cares about. That she wants to do. That she's oriented towards. To hell with her employer, colonial as they may be. You know, but these students, they need to be taught. They need to understand what's really at stake here with what Israel is doing to the Palestinians.
But I also realize, and I think this is a painful lesson that a lot of us in the Palestine Solidarity Movement have been learning, is that we don't have power.
Palestine Solidarity Movement, they have solidarity with the Palestinians, you know, and as a consequence, they support Hamas, which is the most egregious force, harassing and haranguing and destroying Palestinian lives. It is what is causing the death and destruction in Gaza and in the West Bank. It is the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, the leaders of the Palestinian movement that are responsible for the horrific lives that Palestinians indeed do have. And yet, if you really had solidarity with the Palestinians, you would be anti-Hamas, anti-Palestinian Authority, for a new leadership for the Palestinian people, because their leadership has betrayed them forever, for the last 100 years. So give me a break, Palestinian solidarity. You don't give one iota about the Palestinians. What you do is hate. Hate University of Chicago. Hate the United States of America. Hate Israel. Fundamentally, what drives these people is hatred of Western civilization. They hate the world in which they exist, and the world in which allows them to talk like this. No other world would allow them to talk like this. Here, she's protected by the First Amendment. Maybe her job shouldn't be protected, but she is protected by the First Amendment. There is no First Amendment for the Palestinian people. There is no First Amendment protection anywhere in the Middle East except in Israel.
We can shift the moral authority all we want, and we've won the moral question. Like,
that is scary. They've won the moral question, and I think they have. I think they have. They have won the moral question. Young people, 50% of young people today, 18 to 24-year-olds, sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. They have won the moral question. It is one of the great tragedies that I think this country will pay for a long time. The fact that these monsters, these evil monsters, have won the moral issue.
Like that was the imperative that we've had. Done, check. Like, put Palestine in the national consciousness. We did it. Make people sympathetic to Palestine. Teach the history. We did it. Like, now you have white boys on the north side of Chicago being like, "Hey, man, free Palestine." I'm like, oh, okay. Now, did not see it coming. Glad it's here.
That's right, because they're so brainwashed. They don't know anything about Palestine. They don't know anything about the history. They don't know anything about what's going on. But these kind of teachers and these kind of intellectuals have so dominated the public discourse about this that young people have just completely bought in. Completely bought in. By the way, if you want to ask a question, Super Chat is the way to ask it. I will not answer questions in the chat itself.
But what we don't have is power. And I think for me, the question of base building is about, I think the question that I'm asking myself and I'm asking you to ask yourself is, where can I actually build power? Turns out I work at one of the biggest employers in the city of Chicago. I work at a place that is a landlord, a healthcare provider, a police force. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, we don't need police force. God, we don't need police. I mean, didn't you know that violence is just a consequence of having police? Violence and violation of property, well, they shouldn't be property rights, all a consequence of civilization. That's straight out of Rousseau, by the way.
But they are, right? And a place where I have access to thousands of people that I could potentially organize. And you know what? It's not fun. Organizing...
Access to thousands of people that she could potentially organize. Students, professors, other people that are working at the university. This is vile, horrible, evil. And she's a professor teaching your kids at the University of Chicago. Again, one of the better schools. You didn't have that many demonstrations at the University of Chicago. It wasn't a big deal over there. And yet, here she is telling people how to attain power. They need power. Over what? Over kids.
Academics? Next time you're in your organizing meeting being frustrated, please think of me. Please think about me. Trying to organize like academics. Like,
they think this is funny.
It's brutal. I never saw this coming. However, but I'm just like, actually, this is where I need to build power, right? Like, this is my best possible structural leverage. And so I do one-on-ones with my liberal colleagues who are like, well, I don't know, but, I just think we should live the life of the mind here in Hyde Park, where we go. It's like, yeah, I hear you, totally, yeah. Fuck the University of Chicago, it's evil.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, this should really scare you. This is our universities. These are professors, and what they think in terms of power. This is the whole leftist agenda, the postmodern leftist agenda. It's all about power. And they have a lot of power at the universities. They don't have a lot of political power yet. That power over the minds of our kids. And it's effective. They've won the day on the Palestinian thing. They've won the day. If you measure it by sympathy to the Palestinians among young people. It's the cool thing. The cool thing is to hate Israel and to love the Palestinians. The cool thing is to love a theocracy. The cool thing is to love a culture that throws gays off of buildings. The cool thing is to love a culture that has no free speech. The cool thing is to love a culture that kills anybody who speaks up against it. That's cool today in America. And that's cool in America because of monsters like her. And we let them get away with it. We let them get away with it because we send our kids to their classrooms. Let them get away with it because we send checks to alma mater. Now, alma mater without any conditions placed on it. We let them get away with it because how many voices are out there making a moral case for Israel? The moral case against the Palestinians. The moral case against Hamas, which should be easy. And of course, again, whether the left manifests itself politically or whether the fascists backlash against the left manifests itself politically, it doesn't really matter. These people are destroying America and leading to ultimately to its decay. They need to be fought, particularly if you have college-age kids. Be careful where you send them. Be careful who gains power over their minds. Talk about crazy. Did you see that Tucker Carlson has interviewed the president of Iran? I mean, why not? He interviewed Putin. I mean, Tucker would be flying right now to Berlin if Hitler was in Berlin and would be groveling before him. I mean, he not only did he interview the president of Iran, but it was an interview filled with unbelievable softball questions where often the answers were just complete nonsense, with, of course, Tucker Carlson not challenging anything. This is the president of Iran talking about the chanting debt to the U.S. When we say debt to the U.S., we don't need debt to the people or even the officials. We mean debt to crimes, killing, insecurity, and instability. Wow. And he continues, he says, have you ever heard an Iranian killing an American? And Tucker's like, no, I never heard of that. I mean, he doesn't literally say that, but that's what he doesn't say, I don't know, Marine barracks in Beirut, Kobo Tower, in Iraq. You could go on and on and on and on. I mean, debt to the U.S. does not, people, you gotta get serious. It does not mean, when they say debt to the U.S., it doesn't mean actually debt to the U.S. I mean, you've got to read between the lines. You've got to get the subtlety of argument here. You've got to get with the program. The Iranians are peace-loving people. They have nothing against America. They love America, and even Israel. They just want justice for Palestinians. That's all. They want the killing to stop. They want the crimes to stop. They really upset about the rioting in U.S. cities, and they would really like to see that stopped. So they call for death for the U.S. in order to prevent the crimes that happen in the U.S., the killing, the insecurity, and instability. Tucker Carlson is no better than that crazy academic. The same evil, same anti-American, anti-civilization, anti-freedom evil is represented on the far left by academics like her. And luckily, she can only expose her evil ideas to thousands. Tucker does it to millions. But of course, there are many more like her than there are Tuckers. So it all kind of evens out. But generally, the American people are bombarded from left and right by just an ongoing, unending evil ideas, the sanction of evil. I mean, Tucker, can you find more evil people to interview? Mass murderers? Anybody? I mean, he's already provided a cover for Hitler and a reason for people to examine Hitler, just asking questions, of course. He's covered for Putin, mass murderer. He's covering now for the president of Iran, and ultimately its supreme leader, and the whole culture of theocracy. I mean, left and right, both thoroughly evil, thoroughly corrupting, thoroughly evasive. Pretty disgusting, the kind of the kind of advocacy world we live in. All right. All right. Got 3 more topics. Let's talk about building in America. So you remember the bridge, the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore that a cargo ship hit and it collapsed about 16 months ago. 16 months ago. 16 months. That's over a year, almost a year and a half. How much of the bridge do you think has already been rebuilt? When is the opening ceremony for the new bridge? Well, if you don't know, there's good reason for that. Because the reality is that not only is the bridge not being rebuilt, it hasn't even been started. Indeed, they're only now starting to knock down the remnants of the old bridge. I mean, when it comes to building stuff, physical stuff, it's like we've gone backwards 200 years. We're incapable of building anything. It takes forever. Now, you remember there was that one highway that collapsed in Philadelphia, and they built that really quickly, so it's possible. But here, I'm sure the environmental regulations, the who's responsible, who's in charge, who's going to pay for it, whatever, has just prevented this from even happening. You know, in 1930, it took 410 days, just over a year, to build the Empire State Building from scratch, from nothing. Now, who knows? It'll take 3 years to get this bridge up. I mean, this is a bridge. It's nowhere near as complicated as, at the time, was the tallest skyscraper in the world. This is a bridge that everybody, I mean, plenty of engineers know how to build. There's no engineering challenge here. There's a regulatory government paralysis challenge. All right, Ukraine. Good news, I guess, for Ukraine is that President Trump has now said that he will resume sending Ukraine weapons, in particular defensive weapons. So they will start getting Patriot systems in Ukraine soon. Not as many as they would like, not as many as was promised in the past, but they are getting some. Trump, indeed, on a phone call with Zelensky, a few days ago, basically told Zelensky that he wasn't the one who stopped the weapons from flowing to Ukraine, which raised the question, well, given that how involved he is in foreign policy and that he is the commander-in-chief and, Marco Rubio is invisible, he's disappeared, he's a non-entity, who actually is running foreign policy for the United States, who actually makes these decisions. Well, it turns out the person making this decision in particular is probably Aldrich Colby. Aldrich Colby is a undersecretary of defense. I mean, it's not Hegseth. Hegseth is way, way, way too consumed by going after trans in the military and by repeating over and over and over again about how he wants a warrior mentality in the military, to actually have policy, to actually do anything that would actually allow the United States to maintain a strong military opposite its enemies. He would actually have to tell Donald Trump that his tariffs are harming our alliances, and maybe even tell Donald Trump that, we'd have to tell him a lot of truths that nobody wants to tell Donald Trump. Anyway, it turns out that Aldrich Colby, who has been an opponent of aid to Ukraine for a long time, would like to focus all the efforts of the U.S. on China, even though the kind of stuff that we give Ukraine is probably not what we would use in Taiwan. Probably not, right? Tanks, artillery, not stuff we need in Taiwan. Now, maybe Patriot systems, maybe, but it's just not the same stuff. There's not going to be a land war in Taiwan. It's going to be a Navy war. It's going to be an air war. It's not going to be a land war. Anyway, the good news is I think Trump had another conversation with Putin last week. Very frustrating for Trump, because no matter what Trump does, no matter what Trump tries, no matter how much Trump kisses Putin's ass, Putin just refuses to budge. He's just not interested in a ceasefire. He's not interested in peace. He's not interested in stopping the war. He's not interested in giving Trump anything. He knows Trump is just a paper mouse. A paper mouse. That's good. A paper mouse. So Putin's not giving anything, not giving an inch. And Trump is like out of the deal. I've tried all my tricks on him. I reread my book and tried it again. And nothing works. So Trump has today floated the idea, oh, maybe we need some sanctions on Russia, more sanctions on Russia, even as he's been loosening the sanctions on Russia. And now he's ready to give Ukraine more weapons, but not quite the weapons they need in order to win, but at least some weapons. So the chief Pentagon spokesman, Sean Parnell, released a statement announcing the transfer of additional defensive weapons to Ukraine at the direction of the U.S. president. It's so anyway, Trump wants to send more weapons to Ukraine, and the Pentagon is doing it, I think, beginning with some Patriot batteries. And we will see where this goes. But Trump's policy, remember he was gonna get peace between Ukraine and Russia in a day. It just was gonna happen. And then he said, when asked about that, he said, it turns out it's a little harder than anybody thinks to get peace. And it's like, no, we all thought that. You're the only person in the world who thought it was easy. And you were, unshockingly at all, wrong. Anyway, Aldrich Colby is going to play a big role in foreign policy in this administration, primarily because his boss is not very smart and is not that interested in strategy. Colby is interested in strategy. He's written about strategy. I've actually got his book on my Kindle. He's going to play a big role here, and it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. I mean, as far as Colby's concerned, the U.S. needs to get out of the Middle East, get out of Europe, get out of NATO, get out of Ukraine, focus all its energies on China, and I think ultimately with the risk of prodding China into a world war, into a war. But he's the one behind the reviewing the submarine deal with the Australians. Again, it doesn't make any sense. That's exactly what you want if you want to isolate China. Contain, not isolate, contain China. But, nobody said the fact that he's done a lot of strategy, thought a lot about strategy, doesn't mean he actually knows any strategy. It doesn't mean he's very smart. It strikes me he's neither one of those. All right. Let's see. All right, some good news. Some good news. A bunch of things happening in Argentina that are just that are good, right? Let's take a few. A few weeks ago we talked about the fact that Argentina is going to have one of the highest growth rates in the world at 5-point-something% annualized for the second quarter. Well, now they've announced that it looks like they're going to have 7.6% year-over-year GDP growth for Q2. 7.6. Stunning, in particular when you take into account how many people were sure Milei was going to fail. It just shows not just what good ideas can do, because you can have good ideas, but it can be impossible to put them into practice. Milei has found a way to put his ideas into practice, and in spite of many within Argentina, whether in the parliament or within the bureaucracy, trying to stop him, he's managed to do it. The courts stood in the way. He's managed to do it. And it just shows that maybe if you win, and if you're really dedicated, if you're principled, and if you know what you want, and if you have a clarity over what you want, clarity over what needs to be done, you can do things in spite of amazing odds against you. Just some other stuff going on. Argentina's private sector wages hit a 6-year high, adjusted for inflation. So people are making more money. Poverty rates way down from when he took over. You remember when he took over, poverty rates spiked for a little while, and since then they've plummeted and continue to plummet. Let's see what else. Milei got emergency authorization from the government, from the parliament, to deal with the economic catastrophe that was Argentina. Part of that allowed for deregulation kind of by executive order, and to do a lot of stuff by executive order. Anyway, that authorization basically, I think, runs out this week. It basically is gone. And his ability to do things by decree, by executive orders, is going to go away with it. And as a consequence, his deregulation czar, he had a guy responsible just for deregulation, came up with a bunch of things and a bunch of executive orders this week, the last week, in order to try to get in under the wire as much reform as possible. Again, it's very constrained what they can do. One thing they've done, they've overhauled their energy sector. They've established a national gas and electric regulatory entity, which is one entity merging a number of other entities into a single body. But this body is responsible for deregulating the sector. So, for example, it's going to be private companies that get the contracts to develop much of or all of the energy resources that Argentina has. And Argentina has a massive shale, massive fracking potential, massive, maybe the second largest in the world. They're going to open up international markets to global energy imports and exports. So get rid of tariffs and get rid of limitations on exporting, which previous governments put in place. The increasing consumer choice and allowing for competition in energy provision. they're getting massive amounts of private funding. So they're privatizing, in a sense, the transmission lines. They've got $6.6 billion in private funds that is going to support 5,600 kilometers of new power lines. Lower taxes on electricity. And a 24-month period to fully transition basically to as private a energy sector as they can get away with, given what they're allowed to do at this point. Now, Milei is up. Milei has, there are elections in October for parliament. He is fielding a political party. If that political party gets significant support, even more radical things are going to be happening. Milei is also, as part of these last-minute deregulations, Argentina government is going to shut down the National Highway Administration, which is this unbelievably corrupt entity that's supposed to build highways in Argentina, but really siphons money into the pockets of a variety of different people. And highways suck really, really bad. You compare the highways in Chile, the highways in Argentina, night and day. This will eliminate 5,000 jobs, 67% of which are administrative, save about $90 million annually. And finally, it looks like all new road construction and all maintenance of existing highways is going to be privatized. That is, they're going to take 9,100 kilometers of roads in Argentina. I mean, this is primarily, these are highways, I assume, and privatize them. Not privatize them in terms of ownership, but privatize them in terms of maintenance, revenue, control. All of that is going to now be privatized, and I assume these roads will be tolled. There'll be tolls on all of them, but now they'll be maintained and new roads will be built. There were a lot of almost dirt roads once you get south of central Argentina and towards Patagonia. I mean, I once tried to hire a car from Califate to Bariloche, and they told me it would take at least 24 hours to drive, and then most of the way was dirt roads. And therefore, I had to fly, and there's nothing in between. It should be a fast highway there, and it would just take a few hours. So hopefully that gets built now. So they're privatizing 9,100 kilometers of roads. So Milei, I think, one has to come to the conclusion at this point, is actually the real thing. Milei is the real thing. He is a principled advocate for free markets. He is making real, meaningful changes that are liberating the Argentinian economy. And the results are what you'd expect when an economy is liberated. The results are more prosperity, higher wages, more jobs, higher standard of living, high quality of life. So it's still fun and exciting to watch Milei in action. So I am thrilled by what he is doing. I think the Institute has got a conference in Argentina coming up. I'm not going, but I think a number of AOI scholars are going to be down there. Hopefully talking to people around Milei, if not to Milei himself. Keep up the good work should be a big part of that message. All right. That is the news for Tuesday, July 8th. And we'll be back this whole week with our news shows. All right, we have a bunch of questions. We're still short on our 2-hour goal, so please consider supporting the show with a sticker, with a question. I only answer questions in the super chat, so please, if you want to ask a question, just click on that $ sign at the bottom of the chat, And, $2, $5, $10, $20, $20 get priority, $50. We've got one here for €60. And you can go all the way up to $500. Please ask questions. Please help us get to the goal. Remember, this show is only possible because of contributions from you. It doesn't happen without you. We have a bunch of stickers. Thank you, RDF. Thank you, Mary Aline. Thank you, Britt. Many of them are like $2. You too can do $2. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Mike. Let's see. Thank you, Oil W. Thank you, Esoteric Dichotomy. I know we also had Jonathan Honing did a few stickers. John Glue got us started right at the beginning with a $20 sticker. Thank you, John. Yep. And thank you, Catherine. 2 stickers. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Sylvanas. So we got quite a few stickers early, and I think I've covered everybody. So thank you, guys. Of course, one way in which to support the show, which is particularly beneficial for me and creates certainty for me and for you, is to do it on Patreon, to become kind of a monthly supporter. That provides me with predictability. It provides you with not having to think about it and ignoring my requests. Now you can just do it and get it over with. I know a lot of you kind of know that you should be supporting the show, and you just are being, I don't know, lazy, just slow in setting up a Patreon or going to PayPal and setting it up. But please just go to PayPal, Patreon. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to do. If you have a credit card, you can make it. You can go in. You can do a $5, $10, all the way up to $1,000 a month to support the show and make it possible for me to do what I'm doing. So if you value it, value for value, if you listen to the show, you get something out of it, please consider supporting the show. All right. We have 3 sponsors. We have the new sponsor, which is Hendershot Wealth Management. And Hendershot Wealth Management right now has this new product, legit, legal, good, reliable, which is primarily for those of you who might have a lot, and I'm talking about 7 figures, a lot of capital gains. And if you sell the asset, a business, stocks, you're going to have to pay a lot of money to the government. And if you're in California, it's a lot of money. But everywhere, a big chunk of whatever it is you think you have is owed to the government, a big chunk of it. So there is now an investment strategy, a product that you can invest in that basically allows you to shield or basically indefinitely defer many of these capital gains. And it's, as I said, it's legit. It works. People are doing it now. It's managed by one of the most sophisticated and best companies, financial companies in the U.S. If you want to know more about this, just look up my video with Robert Hendershot on my YouTube channel. Go to my YouTube channel and just look for an interview with Robert Hendershot. You can also find it. I think there's a playlist on my channel for sponsors, and it is the only video there. It's about a half an hour where I talk to Robert about capital gains taxes, what they are, how they work, and how this product works. And then you can there'll be a link there for a website where you can go sign up and get more information from them directly. But they are a sponsor of the show, and I endorse this product for the right circumstances and the right person. Ayn Rand Institute is also a sponsor of the show, and let me check what it is that we and the best way to find the latest and greatest stuff that's going on is to go to AynRand.org/start here. And, this week, OCON 2026. OCON 2026. Now, it turns out OCON 2026 is going to be in New Orleans. New Orleans 2026. Great jazz, great food, great vibe, kind of a little crazy. It'll be from June when is it going to be? June. I know it ends on June 30th. I know it's in here somewhere. Anyway, next June, late June. It doesn't fall on 4th of July next year. So Ocon 2026, right now, there's an early bird discount. It's only going to run until July 19th, so you've got 11 days. It's 50%. 50%. It runs, it's right in front of me. June 26th to June 30th, New Orleans, Louisiana. It's, you're going to get a 50% discount. And it says here, yeah, wait a second, I'm looking here. Yes, so just go on there and get your 50%. INUAN.org/start here. So all of you should be there. Like everybody who listens to the show should come. I mean, the conference that just happened in Boston was a blast. We had a really, really, really good time, and I made it to the final table in poker, if you're interested. So join us. That will be, remember, oh no, sorry, I made a mistake. This discount is only good for another day. Another day. So the discount ends on Wednesday, July 9th, tomorrow at midnight Pacific time. So you've got 1 day to make a decision. Now, you might check the refund policy, but it could be that you could sign up now and then if you change your mind later, get the money back. But right now, 50% off. 50. Ian did outlast me, so did Cook, if he's here. The two of them outlasted me in poker. They didn't win, but they did outlast me on the final table. So Ian gets bragging rights for the next year until we have a rematch in New Orleans. So go register, 50% off, and do that. And then finally, Alex Epstein is a sponsor of the show. Alex, while he did not succeed in getting everything he wanted in terms of the elimination of subsidies for the wind and solar, he did an amazing job raising awareness of that and almost got there. He is building now, I think, the infrastructure to be able to, in the future, have much more influence. He's learning the lobbying game. He's learning how to do this, how to gain influence in Washington, D.C. You should support Alex if you care about America's future. Because if we can do this in energy, we'll learn from that to do it on other things. But at least you can start with energy. And he is building down infrastructure so that in the future, we will eliminate all subsidies, we will deregulate, and we will get freedom in energy, which is what he's working on. So alexepstein.substack.com, alexepstein.substack.com. Sign up for his Substack. You'll read what he's going through and what happened in D.C., but you'll also gain an enormous amount of knowledge about the energy industry and about how to fight for its liberation and what the consequence of its liberation would actually be. You'll also learn a lot about kind of environmentalism and climate change and everything else that's going on. All right. Let us turn to your questions, and I will remind you that we do have targets for Super Chat, for the Yaron Brook shows, for the news shows. Today, we're probably going to sneak into our third hour, given how many questions we have. I have quite a few $5, $10 questions, but they really need to be $20 questions because we are going to get into that third hour, and the goal for 3 hours is $750 for that. We're short about $300. But let's at least try to make the second hour goal, which is $500. And, we're short... We're short there $76. So let's try to get to $76. That would require what? 4 $20 questions? That's not beyond the reach. John just did $20 sticker, so you can support us getting to the target, even without asking a question, just by doing a sticker. For $20 stickers would get us to our goal. So please consider doing that. All right. Rational IP, who came in with €60, $70, and increasing because the euro is rising vis-a-vis the dollar. Rational IP says, is there a link between Rand and Art Deco? Certain editions of her novels have Art Deco art on the cover. What's your opinion of this style, and how would you look at it through an objectivist lens? Personally, Art Deco is one of my favorite styles. So Ayn Rand certainly liked Art Deco, and it was, again, more of a style, I'd say, than a school of art. So in art, she was a romanticist. And Art Deco is more of a style that affects architecture, it affects, some sculpture, although I don't think Ayn Rand necessarily liked the Art Deco sculpture, or elevated it as much as she would, let's say, Renaissance sculpture or 19th century sculpture, although I'm not sure. There was some Art Deco painting, but really nothing dramatic and memorable. I mean, her preference was clearly for a more romantic style and a more stylized, realistic, stylized, realistic style of Cappelletti, who was one of her favorite painters, modern painters. But she definitely liked furniture, decor, and others that were Art Deco, and I like it. It's not my favorite. When it comes to furniture, I like modern furniture. I like sleek, clean, simple lines. I don't like heavy. I don't like furniture that's overly decorative. I like to put the decoration on the furniture, not have the furniture itself be decorative. So I personally like kind of Scandinavian, Italian, modern furniture, and I like to put 19th century sculptures, and I like decorative vases and decorative things like that, but I tend to like more sleek, modern lines. I appreciate Art Deco. I enjoy it. I just wouldn't surround myself with it. As somebody says, it's a little busy. Yeah, for me, it's a little busy, but certainly Ayn Rand really liked it, and a lot of the covers of her books reflect that, like Art Deco. Her love for Art Deco. I don't remember how much she wrote about Art Deco in the Romantic Manifesto. I'm sure she did, but I can't remember how much. Right? All right. Thank you, Rational IP. That made a huge dent in where we need to go, but we still need $70, exactly $70 to get to where we need to go. Actually, $71 if somebody can do. Michael. What's the difference between an idea, an emotion, an inclination, and temperament? Oh, God. An idea is something cognitive. It is something you think. It is part of cognition. An idea is a complex thought. It requires thinking. It requires integration. It requires words, concepts, and an understanding of what those concepts are. An emotion is a feeling. It's something you feel. It does not come forward in the form of concepts or in the form of a word. Now, you can identify the emotion with a concept, but the emotion itself, vis-a-vis an idea is, in conceptual terms, an emotion is not. So an emotion is just a response, an automatic, immediate response to something, based on a previous idea or conclusion that you came to. An inclination is, well, it depends how you mean it exactly. But an inclination could very well be something that you might be born with inclinations. I don't know. You might be inclined towards the arts. Might be something where you are wired biologically to have certain capabilities and abilities. I don't know, in math or in the arts. It's just the wiring is there to facilitate that interest. It still has to go through cognition. It doesn't just happen. It's just there. It's just again, this is my best. I think with inclination and temperament, we don't know very much. We know very little indeed. Temperament again is a precognitive wiring that, I mean, it can change. The temperament can change, and to some extent, you can do the wiring yourself. But it does seem like babies are born with different temperaments. More energy, less energy, more inclination. Again, inclination and temperament are probably linked. But I think temperament is more linked to energy, than anything else. And expression of energy, whether you're very active or a little passive. And it seems like babies are born with different temperaments. Although, again, I don't know of the studies, and I don't know how you would measure it, and I don't know that anybody's done that. I'm sure they have, or they've tried. But that seems to be wired somehow, right? It's not an idea. It's a temperament that you have, and you're probably born with. Can it be changed? Probably. You can beat energy out of a kid. Michael, this is not a simple budget increase. It is an explosion, making ICE bigger than the FBI and DEI combined by a lot. It is setting up to make what's happening now look like child's play, and people are disappearing. Well, I don't know. I mean, a few people are disappearing. It's not a trend yet. But yes, I mean, the ICE budget is really, really, really scary. The size of it. A lot of it supposedly is going to go to build a wall. But I doubt that. I think most of the money is going to go to hire more ICE agents, arm them to the teeth, get more sophisticated weapons, get more sophisticated in surveillance over American citizens and over America itself. And I think if you think this is going to stop with immigrants, you're delusional. I mean, it wasn't Trump even said something about he would like to deport American citizens who are criminals. It's not clear where this ends, and it certainly is giving the government the tools for a massive surveillance state. And this has always intrigued me. People who believe in freedom, who really advocate, who want personal freedom, liberty. And I get they don't like immigration, but their solution, they don't like illegal immigration. Their solution is to increase the power of the state. Haven't we learned from history that when you increase the power of the state, it is never going to be only focused on the thing you would like it to be focused on? Increase the power of the state, it's never going to shrink. That budget, that ICE budget, never going to shrink. What are they going to spend it on? At some point, they'll run out of illegal immigrants. They'll run out of building walls. And yet this every year, they get this huge amount of money. What are they going to do with it? They're going to start watching you. They're going to put cameras everywhere. They're going to have station people every corner. Who knows? I don't know exactly what they're going to do. Crazy. Michael, can anyone at AOI reach out to Elon about the new political party he's starting? There's no reason a brilliant mind like his wouldn't be influenced by a one-on-one sit down with an expert, objectivist, intellectual. People are trying, so we're trying to get in front of Elon Musk. Hopefully it'll happen. But there's certainly an effort to try to reach him. We've reached people within his organization. But your expectation of all it takes is a one-on-one, this is not Atlas Shrugged, where John Galt gives a speech to a brilliant businessman and the guy just blown away and converted and follows John Galt into wherever John Galt takes them. I don't want to give it away. This is not that. So it's much harder, much less likely that that Musk would be influenced in a significant way. But you need to try. We definitely need to try. I think we came close to a meeting, and we met with his number 2, but the effort continues. Doodle Bunny, if I feel bad for a down and out homeless guy and want to help him out, does that make me an evil altruist? Do I need to rewire my psychology? Well, I mean, it really depends on why you're feeling that. Who is this homeless person? Is it somebody you know the story? And is somebody who's basically a good guy who bad stuff has happened to and he really is for no fault of his own? Or is it just some random guy that you feel sorry for because he's down and out? I think if it's the random guy, then yeah, you need to rewire your psychology. You need to rethink your premises. You need to root out elements of altruism that is still within you. Now, you can feel bad because it's a human being in a horrible state. I mean, that's legit if you just feel bad. But if you really want to help him, if it goes deeper than that, then you should question it. You should ask. You should try to figure it out. It also depends how much help and whether you're able to help. And then it also depends on, again, who this homeless person is and how much of the story do you know and how much is it legit. If it's just some drug addict who screwed up his life, messed it up, and the likelihood that he will straighten himself out is zero, then why are you feeling anything for him? So you've got to think it through. I can't give you a straight out answer. It could be fine, and it could be completely motivated by altruism. Not your average algorithm. Is a man full of fear more dangerous than a man full of anger? Oh, God. I mean, these are the kind of questions that have no answer. It depends. Some people full of fear are more dangerous than people full of anger. Some people full of anger are more dangerous than people full of fear. Right? Because it depends on the circumstances, it depends on the person, it depends what weapon they're carrying, it depends on a lot of things. Some people who are angry are very, very, very dangerous. Some people who are afraid are not dangerous. So you can't make a rule like that. I don't like those kind of all-encompassing rules. Mike, what do you make of the timing of a U.S. judge demanding that ownership of the Argentinian state oil company be handed over to U.S. investors when Milei had been counting on it to lift up the economy? Oh, I'm not going to make anything of it until I read the case and figure out exactly what's going on. I think you can't. I think it's very dangerous to come to big conclusions. It could very well be that U.S. investors are owed a lot of money by this oil company. They have defaulted, and they have every legal right to take it over. And in a sense, it's a way to privatize the company. It's a great step for Argentina, having the company privatized. I don't believe in privatizations in order to get revenue. I believe in privatizations in order to get the asset into private hands as a step towards privatizing an economy. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the judge is wrong or that it's suspicious, the timing. I basically don't know, and I'd have to read the exact nature of the case. Sika says, thank you, Sika, 20 Canadian dollars. I appreciate that. Alex, how is one supposed to run a business in a state like California where poor employee behavior is encountered, if not outright sanctioned by the law and an army of attorneys? It's very difficult. Very, very difficult to employ people in California because it's very, very difficult to fire them. It's why businesses leave California more than any other reason. It's labor laws. Labor laws in California are one of the most horrific things about California. So it's super difficult. I completely sympathize, and I have no real advice other than get out of California or make sure to hire good people who are not going to behave crazily. But that limits the kind of business you can have. Yeah, it's horrible. California employment law is horrible. And by the way, California employment law in the tech industry is less horrible because they basically carved out all kinds of exceptions from the laws because they are the largest employer in California or the largest revenue source in California. So they have the political power to carve out goodies for themselves. It's, as usual, a lot of small businesses or non-tech businesses that get stuck with these laws that are just horrific. All right. Liam says, I listen to Trump and think, man, how do you get to that age and still be such a toddler? Sadly, there are a lot of people like that, and indeed they become more toddlerish with old age. Their mind is quite not as sharp. They start losing the edge, and they become more of that, not less of that, after a certain age. Liam, who, okay, were Americans in the 18th and 19th century the most self-confident and uncompromising population in the history of the world? Yeah, I think so. I think one has to say that yes. They came to this country with nothing. They built something. They pursued their values. They were incredibly self-confident. I mean, the ones who went back, people don't talk about a huge percentage of immigrants to the United States left once they realized how hard it was to be successful in the U.S. It required a lot of self-confidence, and it required work to be successful. Not your average algorithm. Is altruism designed to ready people for abuse? Well, it's designed to ready people for control. Altruism is the morality of control. It sets people up to be controlled. It sets them up to rely on the witch doctor or the Attila, the political leader, to tell them what to do, because who should they sacrifice for? It sets them up to become sacrificial animals. And more importantly, it sets them up not to pursue their own self-interest. So there's a sense in which it's for abuse, but it's abuse, but it's really to pursue goals that are not their own. So you have to think about who has an incentive, political leaders, religious leaders, to get people to pursue their goals, not their own goals, not the individual's goals. James, if being inconsiderate isn't selfish, what is it? Narcissistic? Yeah, I mean, it's often narcissistic. It's just mean. It's being inconsiderate. I mean, it depends. I mean, the circumstances in which it makes sense to be inconsiderate. But to ignore other life, to ignore other human beings, isn't necessarily selfish. It could be selfish. But I don't know. It's mindless narcissistic. I don't know what term you want to give it. I don't have a particular term for it. It could be driven by mindlessness. It could be driven by narcissism. It could be driven by being busy. In that case, it might be selfish. But it can be driven by a lot of different things. Don't look for one explanation. Everything has to have one explanation for why people do a particular thing or what explains a particular thing. Life is really that simple. James, are evil people more numb than pageful? I don't know what pageful is. Do you mean dumb, numb, or pageful? I don't know. I don't know what those two terms mean, so I'm not sure what exactly you're asking. Sorry. Harper Campbell, did Hitler get as far as he did because the world was more morally disarmed than it is today? I don't know why you think that. Could Hitler not get away with what he did then, today? Do we have evidence that Hitler would be stopped sooner? I don't have that evidence. I mean, look at the support Hamas gets. Look at the support Putin has. Look at how people crumble before Putin. I think the world was weaker. The better world, America, Europe, was weaker back then. I think that's the main thing. That's the reason why Hitler got away with what he got away with, was because there was no force to stop him. Once the United States armed itself and entered the war, Hitler was finished. James, is narcissistic altruism a thing, donating to charity in order to get recognition for that donation rather than donating out of a sense of moral duty? Yeah, absolutely. I think narcissistic altruism is, again, I don't know that I'd call it altruism. Again, altruism is separate from narcissism. Narcissistic charity, absolutely. I think a lot of what's called virtue signaling is a kind of narcissism regarding this. So, but I wouldn't call it narcissistic altruism. Those two are two different things. And altruism is a real sacrifice. So altruism is placing the well-being of others before yourself. Now, it could be motivated by narcissism. I guess that's what you're getting at. Yeah. So in that sense, absolutely. Michael, do you think Kamala Harris or Joe Biden would have ordered the bombing of the Iranian nuclear facility or allowed Israel to do what they did? I don't think they would have ordered the bombing. They might not have had a choice but to allow Israel to do what they did. So I think they probably wouldn't have done the bombing, but Israel would have done it anyway. So just on that basis, just on the basis of Israel, Iran, yeah, Trump is better. I mean, just on the basis of Gaza, Trump is better. At least for now. Now, of course, Trump also immediately announced a ceasefire. So he's better, but he's not good. Not the average algorithm. Will the big, beautiful bill prop up the stock market temporarily? Is there any long-term good in it? No, because I don't see what the big, beautiful bill does for the stock market. So I don't think it props anything up. Is there any long-term good in it? I mean, it cuts certain things. It increases other things even more. But it cuts certain things, so that's good. Problem is, those things could be refunded. They haven't eliminated them, so they can be refunded. I think that's part of the problem of doing it in a reconciliation bill. So, for example, Alex's whole point about the subsidies is because they allow them to exist past the next presidency, who could be a Democrat for all we know, they could be expanded again easily by a future Congress. So there are some cuts. The cuts generally are good. So, yeah. So there's some good things in it, but there are a lot more bad things. And the good things are not really that good. They're not deep enough. And they're not permanent. I like numbers. Says, Tal talked about getting with billionaires. I know you don't want to disclose donors, but it's damn inspiring to hear they are billionaires, objectivist fans. Yeah, quite a few. Quite a few. Let's see. Not your average algorithm. You notice the iPhone has hardly changed in the past 10 years. Why are markets so confident about big tech? Haven't regulators crushed the innovation curve? No, I don't think it's regulation that's crushed the curve. I think it's a lack of imagination at Apple. Steve Jobs is not there anymore. But it's still, the iPhones still get better all the time, significantly better. Even if they haven't changed that much, they've gotten dramatically better, and that's huge. That improves our lives. You know, there's Samsung has got folding phones. It's got some other things that are pretty cool, larger screens. So, and Apple spurs competition with Samsung, which results in that. I don't see it as a regulatory thing right now. I see it more as a tech leadership challenge. Now, it could be antitrust, it could be a lot of things, but I don't think any of those really affect the iPhone, per se. Clark, was the right always as nihilistic as the left? They were just more hidden about their hate. Is this a new phenomenon? I think it's a phenomenon that changes over time. Nihilism is always there, but it ebbs and flows in terms of what's popular. Right now, nihilism on the right is growing. It's a large phenomena driven by Trump, driven by MAGA. It wasn't a few years ago. Kind of regular Republicans and regular conservatives are not typically nihilistic. So when they dominated the Republican Party, there wasn't a lot of it. With the rise, with the people in the new right, the wackos, there were always a set of wackos, but they were small. Now they're bigger, and the same on the left. The periods in which the left explodes in craziness of the far left, and the periods in which the left is more moderate. So it ebbs and flows, and they usually respond to one another. So, for example, I think the recent increase in popularity of the new right is a direct response to the increase on the left. So I think the rise of woke on the left with Obama, right? With Obama and the appearance of Obama's nihilism or really anti-American stance brought about the nihilistic and even anti-American position on the right. If you're going to be racist on the left, I always said the right is better at it, and they will embrace your racism, which is exactly what happened with woke. So the new right is to a large extent a response to the far left, and it could be the other way around. When in the future you could get a response on the far left, which is a response to the far right. So they feed off of each other. Irrationality feeds off of itself. Clark. Part 1. A principled free market candidate who is a fighter could do very well in politics. We can't let fascists have all the charisma. People like men of action regardless of ideas they espouse. Look at the success of Milei. It's not as though the Argentinian population read Austrian economics and got excited. Milei had a strong enough personality to lead them. Yeah, but you can't ignore the fact that Argentinians were desperate and Americans are not. Life in America is still pretty damn good. People are not desperate for radical change. And indeed, when they are offered radical change, they back off of it. So I'm not as confident as you that a charismatic free market person in the United States would do well. I think they do fairly poorly. I don't think Americans want to hear that this country's going bankrupt. I don't think they want to hear that they need to reform Social Security and Medicare. I think they like the delusions. And now when a collapse happens, then it might be possible for somebody to say, I told you so, and then make a difference, just like happened in Argentina. Milei would have not been successful 8 years earlier, 4 years earlier, 20 years earlier. A lot of Milei's success is timing and how bad things had gotten in Argentina and how desperate the Argentinian people were. All right, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. We're just $7 short of our second hour goal. Be nice to chip away at that one. I always liked Rand's answer, I will not die, it's the world that will end, to Tom Snyder's remark of feeling trapped by atheism's implication that there's no purpose in life after death. How would you answer this question? Yeah, I mean, the whole orientation is screwed up. The Snyder orientation is screwed up. It's not an issue of trapped. It's an issue of you're alive. Don't you want to make the most of it? And given that you're a biological entity, you will die. It's just the reality for every biological entity. That only provides urgency to making your life better and more meaningful, happier right now, not to wait, because life is short and it ends. So I view death as an impetus to live well. So that's how I would answer it. I like her answer. It's a world that will end, but it's still, it's you could still say you don't like the world ending. I mean, so it still doesn't resolve this issue of death. Death is still out there, and the world ending is not a good thing. My view is still spin it positively that death creates the urgency around living. Michael, how did all the Jews in 1948 decide to learn Hebrew? Millions of Jews from Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Russia had to learn a brand new language, form an army, and build a nation. How did they decide? They came to Israel, And it was there, once the State of Israel was founded in 1948, Hebrew was established as the national language, and they just learned it. They had no choice. They learned it. They kept on speaking their common language, their previous language, just as they did in other countries. How do all the immigrants in the 19th century, tens of millions who came to America, learn English? And they did. They learned English. So I don't think the language is an issue. They did not know Hebrew coming to Israel. They learned it in Israel when they came here. Because, they wanted to start a new life in a new place. And part of that was create a certain identity. And part of that identity was linked to the language. Michael, the businessman would discover the intellect, and the intellectual should discover reality. Yeah, that's a great line. Great line. Not your average algorithm. Wasn't Hitler's campaign slogan, "Make Germany Great Again"? I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that was a sentiment, if not the explicit slogan. It certainly was a sentiment. All right. Not your average algorithm. Socialism is an organized machine designed to crush humans. Yeah, it's effective at crushing, but really nothing else. It's effective at violence. Not your average algorithm. Do nice guys finish last? No. Lots of nice guys who finish first. Again, there's no rule for that. It depends on what, and depends who the guy is, and depends what nice means. Ryan, hi Yaron. Hey Ryan. Sorry, Ryan left the first, the first table of poker. So he did not make the final table, and he certainly didn't kick me out. So he's going to train this year so he can come back in New Orleans stronger, and go after me more, do damage more thoroughly. Business Blend, happy to book a restaurant in Scottsdale for the 26th around 6 p.m. I'll just need someone to help with logistics of headcount or announcing to followers. Any volunteers? All right. So let's just say if you are interested in joining us for a meetup, right, for the Yaron Brook Show on July 26th, in Scottsdale, Arizona. 26th is Saturday night, July 26th, Scottsdale, Arizona. Then if you're interested in joining us for something casual, no program, have dinner, chat, and so on, send me an email, yaron@yaronbrookshow.com, yaron@yaronbrookshow.com. And we can get together, and it would be fun. So Business Blend will get us a restaurant and get it all organized, but you guys need to let me know so I can tell him how many people are going to come. Business Blend, if you can also send me an email reiterating what you wrote in the chat so that I have your email and can communicate with you. So, yeah, go for it. Go for it. And it would be fun to get together. And that day that evening will be pretty open for me. All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks to all the super chatters. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who was on. Don't forget to go to Patreon and support the show, patreon.com, Yaron Brook Show. Don't forget, if you want to meet up in Arizona on July 26th, send me an email, yaron@yaronbrookshow.com. And I will see you all same time, same place. So tomorrow at 3 p.m. East Coast time, right here on the Yaron Brook Show for another news roundup. See you all then. Bye, everybody.